Okay guys, Bismillah. I'm just testing this out for the very first time, this live YouTube thing. So I don't know how it's going to go, but we're going to give it a shot. So what I want to do today is I want to share some thoughts regarding a recent debate that I was in Manchester. The video was going to be out maybe in about a month's time, and I'm going to do some videos on this topic with brother Yusuf from Manchester, who runs his own YouTube channel, Pondering Soul. So make sure to check those videos out. Actually, we're going to be recording one on Tuesday. Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam to everyone that's joining, and welcome to this channel, to all of the, or welcome to this live stream, should I say, to all of the atheists and or just generally non-Muslims that may come onto this live. Wa alaikum salam. So brothers, sisters, friends, I guess the objective behind this live is twofold. Number one, I just want to share some thoughts. Actually threefold. Number one, I'm just testing out this platform and see how it works. And I wanted to sort of have a live element to this channel for a while now, where I can engage with you guys and try to maybe address some of your questions directly. Just answer whatever questions you may have. Maybe relate to some of the videos I put out during the week. Maybe just general questions related to Islam, atheism, dawah, etc. Secondly, I want to share some thoughts once a week live with you guys. This week I'm going to share some thoughts regarding my recent debate in Manchester, because most of you probably don't know what happened, when it happened, why it happened, etc., or how it went. And thirdly, was to just do a Q&A with you guys, I guess, and just to see if this add a different element to the channel where I can engage with you guys directly. If it goes well, if you guys prefer this, if you guys like this, do let me know in the comments section, and I will definitely carry this on over the next, maybe do one once every week or something like that. So that being said, just quickly, I wanted to share some thoughts regarding my debate. So recently I was invited to Manchester University to have a debate with an individual from the Atheist Alliance. His name was John Richards. Didn't know much about the guy, got his book, read his book. There were some interesting things that I sort of learnt from his book itself and his ideas. So we had a debate in Manchester University. It's been recorded, so it will be out soon. It should be out on the IRA channel within about a month's time. And the debate was on the topic, which was, is life absurd without God? Now, I've made many videos on this particular topic in the past. It's something that's very, I relate with quite a lot because I've experienced some of this stuff in my life. But the debate went really well overall. John obviously had some very unique views, even in regards to atheists. But he, for the most part, he agreed that life is absurd without God. But he also said that life is more absurd with God. However, he didn't establish this in any way, shape or form. We had a good engagement, we had a good discussion session. He was someone that ascribed to scientism, or a type of scientism. He didn't really like the term himself, so I'm not going to refer to it. He basically held the view that science is the only way to truth. Now, this is a very common view some atheists hold. However, many atheists these days have broadened their spectrum from that perspective, and they say, yes, science is the predominant way that we learn about the world, but there are other routes to knowledge that they may accept and consider as well, because science itself depends upon some of these other routes, such as testimony, etc. So it's a very interesting debate. When it comes that you guys will watch it, but one of the specific points I wanted to sort of mention today and just discuss a bit more and maybe go into a bit more detail regarding was this whole idea of purpose. Purpose is something, we all live by, and if we and actually I've got a video that I put out today on this very topic. I had a talk in Cambridge University, which I've just posted this morning, so definitely check that out as well. But purpose is something that we as human beings are so fixated with. It's a part of our DNA. We think about purpose, we live with purpose, and we have different, if you like, different levels of purpose that we function at in our lives. So there is the type of surface level purpose that we live every moment by. So moment to moment, from the time we wake up in the morning to the time we go to bed at night, everything is purpose driven at one level. We get out of bed with a purpose, right? We brush our teeth with purpose, we have a breakfast with purpose, we shower with a purpose, we leave our houses dressed in a particular way with purpose. Everything we do is purpose driven. Everything around us in the world that we live in and we see it through the eyes of purpose, right? Whether we see a tree, whether you see certain animals, whether you look at the sky, the clouds, the moon, the sun, whatever we look at in the world around us, even the natural world predominantly around us, it all seems to, we always associate or ascribe purpose to it. We see it through the eyes or the lenses of purpose. That's just the way we're wired, right? The things we make as human beings, the things we design as human beings, the things we produce as human beings are always produced with a purpose. You don't see designers, making things or producing things that have no purpose, right? It just doesn't make any sense. So purpose is something that's integral to our existence. But when it comes to ourselves, us as human beings, we seem to sometimes not consider this, but many times we do. Many people consider this and think about and ask the question, what is my purpose, my ultimate purpose as a human being? But if you were to ascribe to, or if you were to deny God, deny there is a creator, and you ascribe to, say, atheism or naturalism or any other type of philosophy or ideology, outlook which denies the creator, then you run into the problem that is that there is literally no ultimate purpose. Because if there is no God, there is no creator, and everything is a result, therefore, of just random physical processes, just, mindless, random, cold, non-conscious, dead physical stuff from atoms and molecules whizzing around for God knows how long, then where is the purpose, right? It's all one big accident. Everything that exists is an accident. And this is not just, me making stuff up. This is logically following through with atheism and naturalism. If there is no God, there is no creator, what does that mean? Let's ask the question. That means that everything that's come into being and into existence is an accident. What type of accident is it? It's a physical accident. It's a material type of accident where it's just atoms and molecules that somehow have emerged into being and then have no controller, no creator, no cause, no mind, no force that's directing them. They are just in motion at random, and somehow over time, randomly, they have come together to form everything that we see in existence today, including ourselves. In other words, it's just one big accident. And if this is the case, then where is the purpose? There is no ultimate purpose. What sense does it even make in beings that emerge into this existence that ask the question about purpose and meaning? It's just absurd. It's crazy, right? However, as human beings, by our very nature, we deep down inside intrinsically recognize that there has to be an ultimate purpose to my existence. And we continue to go in search of this. Now, in the talk as well, I mentioned, and I mentioned during the debate too, that this is not something that just Muslims are throwing out there and putting out there. This is a very real human phenomenon. Every single human being asks the question about purpose at some point in their lives. Now, by the way, guys, just to pause there for a second, I can see your questions and your comments popping up, so I'm going to go through them in a second once I've finished addressing this point, because the objective isn't just for me to rant here, it's to go through your comments and your questions and to see if I can engage with those and answer any of the questions that you may have. So, the point being, going back to the point I was making, is that we recognize as human beings that we have purpose and we seek and search for our ultimate purpose. People have done this throughout history. The philosophers, in particular the existential philosophers, especially in the 18th and 19th century, they really dealt with this whole question about the purpose and meaning of life, and many of them came to the conclusion, well, there is no ultimate meaning. They acknowledged the type of existential nihilism. It's meaningless, it's purposeless, accept it. Albert Camus was one of the famous ones who did this. He said, look, there is no meaning, accept it, and now once you've accepted it, it's time to create meaning and live with meaning, right? Now, one thing they did, which I really sort of admire from one perspective, was that they had a very sort of positive outlook. Now, and it's a very difficult thing to do when you actually realize that there is no, and you come to that realization that there is no meaning or purpose to our existence. If there is no creator, there is no God. That is a very scary realization. I personally had that realization in my life at a point, and that really throws you off. It creates a lot of anxiety. It creates a lot of angst inside the human being. It really throws you out of balance. Now, if there's something to admire about these existentialist philosophers, was that they understood this, but they then tried to provide an alternative. Now, it's not to say that the alternatives they provided were successful. They may be successful, but were they logically made sense. Because, for example, Albert Camus, he suggested that, look, you have to make meaning up for yourself. And the absurdity was that you realize there is no ultimate meaning or purpose, but you just make up meaning just to get by. Now, that's nothing short of lying to yourself. You're just making things up for yourself. And most human beings don't like to be lied to, let alone lying to themselves. When I found myself in this position in my life where I realized, okay, there is no ultimate purpose to life, at that point, I thought, you know what? Well, I try to make stuff up for myself just so I can get by, but then I thought very soon I came to the realization, well, what's the point? It's not gonna, I'm making things up. And that's not solving my problem, right? That's just lying to myself. That's like kids, children. You know when children play dress up, they dress like doctors and nurses and what have you. That's essentially what you're doing, and that just doesn't work for most people. So it's and the point I was trying to highlight in the debate as well was that this isn't like Hamza says in his book, that these existential realizations aren't a positive argument against atheism or a positive argument for God's existence. They're not like logical syllogisms in any way, shape or form, which are like definitive, deductive arguments that are going to establish God exists. No, but the point is that they act like signs, they're triggers for the human being, because our nature realizes that the conclusion we're ending up with on atheism and naturalism, it does not fit with our nature. There is a dissonance there. There's an agitation that's created, and that should make us realize that at the very least we need to look past the atheism and the naturalism if we ascribe to such outlooks, and try to look at alternatives. And obviously Islam was the alternative that I found and many people have found, and I make a case for that in the debate. And I also, the book I'm currently working on, which the working title, and I'm just going to share this with you, it's a working title, may not be the final title, but it's called Dying to Believe. Hamza suggested this title, may Allah bless him. I fell in love with it as soon as I heard it. And basically I share my story and my journey from this type of atheism or naturalism, and where the position it brought me to, and how I found myself coming to Islam over time. So I think it's going to be very interesting, and I really go into detail there. That should be out later this year, inshallah, God willing. But that being said, I don't want to go on too much about this point, because obviously I wanted to make this about your questions. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to scroll up and see if you guys have any. If you do have any questions related to this type of topic as well, about about purpose, meaning, value, these existential questions, please feel free to ask too. So, Assalamu alaikum, brother. Wa alaikum salam. Wa alaikum salam. What was your recent debate? So the recent debate was in Manchester. It was with a guy from the Atheist Alliance. His name was John Richards. It should be out in about a month's time, God willing. What was my motivation to tackle atheism? That's a very good question. That's by Ben. So Ben, my motivation to tackle atheism is simply because I've experienced and tasted some of the implications of atheism myself. Now, if you were to ask me, was I an atheist? That's a bit of a tricky question, because my position was that, let alone engaging with the question of whether God exists or not, at one point in my life, I wasn't even interested. Hence, I lived like an atheist or a naturalist would, or any person of a secular disposition would. And that led me to the same logical implications that any atheist would be led to from an existential perspective. Hence, once I found my way through this and I found the truth, I felt a duty to share this with others too, and to try at least clarify things for people and present them with the, like in the Matrix, the blue and the red pill, to present them with that option to choose to continue to live the way they want to live, or to find and adhere themselves to the truth and move forward with that. So I guess that's in a nutshell. Sorry, I just pressed something there, so hopefully we're back. So let's see, any other questions? SubhanAllah, there's loads of comments you guys have made, mashallah, jazakallah khair. Could you do a video session about fallacies and skepticism, jazakallah khair? Yeah, I would definitely do that, brother Wisak. I think your name is Wisak. I would definitely probably do that in maybe the coming few weeks. A month is a lot of time. Yeah, it's in a backlog, so there's loads of videos that are still coming out, and they want to edit it properly, so it will be out, inshallah, and it will be worth the wait, inshallah. You guys will hopefully benefit from it. How do you deal with doubts and make faith strong? Thank you. Very good question by Mirabella Kovacs. I think that's how you say it. Apologies if I said your name wrong. Now, when it comes to doubts, I like to see them in two ways. Now, there's probably many ways you can see this, but I like to, for myself, conceptualize it in this way. There are the type of doubts which aren't really doubts, they're genuine questions, right, that people have. Every person has. Muslims have, non-Muslims have. If you are sincere, that doesn't mean you won't have questions. You will always have questions, right? The prophets had questions, right? The companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, had certain questions. There are genuine questions, right? And Islam encourages us to ask those questions and has the answers, and it provides answers. Yes, sometimes we may need to go on a bit of a journey to find those answers, but the answers are there. And sometimes it's very easy, we find the answers almost immediately. But then there is the other type of doubts, which are doubts that have more of a sinister underlying objective behind them. Now let me explain what I mean here. See, sometimes as human beings, we're very complicated as human beings. A human is a very complex creature, right? There's a lot that's going on inside of us. The human being has the nafs, the self, right? And it has desires. We have desires as human beings. Now, sometimes a person finds themselves in a position where they are inclining towards their desires, and they want to express their desires in ways which are not permissible. They want to engage in things which aren't right. And sometimes they get engaged in these things and they end up falling in a type of love with these things, these desires, and expressing their desires and doing what they know is wrong, but they can't help but do it. We're just weak sometimes, right? But the biggest mistake we make here is that, number one, we don't turn back to God after we've made a mistake. Because remember, Islam doesn't tell us to be perfect. No human's perfect. These are the weaknesses we have. But what we have to do as Muslims is, as soon as we fall, we get back up and we turn back to our Creator. Is not to, once you've slipped, let yourself slip all the way down the slide. That's the biggest mistake we can make. Because once you get into that routine of committing certain sins and actions and fulfilling your desires which aren't correct, and you do that long enough, what happens in the human being is, it creates this type of dissonance, this imbalance. And we don't like to experience imbalance in our lives. We like for things to be balanced, right? So if a person finds themselves in this position where they're engaged in certain sins, and it's gone past the point of just making a mistake, now they are in a type of love with their sin or their mistakes, and they're enjoying them, and they're engaging in them, and they are, it's become a part of their life. It's almost become the deity that they're worshipping now. At that point, that person finds themselves in a very sticky position. Now, on one side is their sins and desires, on the other side is the truth and the belief in their Creator. The mistake some people make, or at this point, there's only a few options that you have. Number one is that you stop, or you try your best to move yourself away from those bad actions and to incline yourselves and turn back towards your Creator slowly, and repent and turn back to God and try focusing again. That's very difficult. It's not easy, but it's the best thing to do. But most people don't do this. We always go for the easy option. The second option is, well, you find a reason to stop believing. So when you stop believing, whatever sins you're engaged in, it just becomes easy for you to engage in them, because there's no more accountability. There is no more guilt, because now you've disassociated yourself from the belief that at that time, in regards to which you're believing that this is what's preventing me from enjoying myself. That's how we think of it sometimes, right? This belief in God is preventing me from enjoying myself. That's the state we get to. And at that point, the easiest thing to do is disassociate yourself from that belief. And as soon as you do that, you can continue to enjoy your sins and engage with your desires without any accountability, without any internal agitation, etc. So at that point, what sometimes happens is that we start to, even if it's subconscious, we start to produce doubts. Now, these doubts aren't genuine. They're not like genuine questions, as I discussed a few moments ago. These are the type of doubts which are there for a particular purpose, which is to help you disconnect yourself from that belief, right? And you'll find this in the disposition of some people. When you talk to them, they ask you a question, they have a doubt, you answer it, they jump to another one. You answer it, they jump to a third one. You answer it, they jump to a fourth one. And you see this starting to get agitated, and then you start seeing that they're not really paying attention to what you're saying anymore. They're not really interested in the answers. They just want for them to be able to put themselves in a position where they can continue to hold on to those doubts, and to believe. They want to believe that their doubts are genuine and that God doesn't exist, and therefore it disassociates them from their Creator, allowing them to continue to live they want to live. Now this is obviously, in a nutshell, this is where the person reaches a position where his point of focus and his object of worship becomes himself and or herself and their desires, and this is very dangerous. But this doesn't happen immediately, it happens over time. So what I would suggest, cutting a long story short, coming back to the point, whenever you get questions, firstly, if you have genuine questions, don't call them doubts. Labeling is very dangerous. If you label something in a particular way, you would see it in that particular way. Sometimes, in most cases, we just have questions. Call them questions, right? I genuinely have questions based on my limited understanding about this aspect or that aspect of Islam. Call it a question. Once you've done that, seek answers. Don't be in any anxiety to find answers. Sometimes it takes time. Just continue to seek the answers. That way you educate yourself, you grow in your knowledge, and you will eventually find the answers, right? However, if you do find yourself in a position where these doubts are coming into your head, and you feel this agitation, the first thing, one thing I'd like you to check for yourselves is ask yourself, am I in the position in my life where I'm really engaging in certain things I know God has told me not to do, but I'm enjoying them so much that I just find it very hard to leave? And could it be that my doubts are related to this agitation I'm having inside me? And is it that these doubts are emerging to sort of put a stop to this agitation by disconnecting me from God? That's a question we have to ask ourselves and be very honest and sincere about. And if we're honest and we're sincere, we will find a way out of that too. And the solution there is what? Is to park the doubts, know that shaitan is taking advantage, right, of the situation as well, and to try to rectify ourselves. Get ourselves to the position where we've genuinely seeked repentance from God, we've turned back to God, we're trying to stop sinning as much as we can, we're moving away from our sin slowly, and we're moving closer to God at the same time. And then after a while, when you find yourself in a better position, then go back to those questions that you may have had and see if the doubts are still there. And you'll realize, you'll be surprised that, God willing, most of those doubts would have disappeared, because they weren't genuine questions, they were just there to serve a particular sinister purpose from that perspective. That's just the way I like to see it, just to break it down. Hopefully that answers your question, sister. Assalamu alaikum, brother, please debate with Harry Sultan. Look, I'll be honest, there are, this is by Minispedia, I think. There is a reason I don't pay attention to some individuals online. And the most simplest reason is because they're just simply not worth debating or bringing to the attention of people, right? It's just not worth it. Hence I don't bother, and I just try to address those points or ideas or individuals that are actually worth addressing from that perspective. Hence I may do possibly in the future, but right now I don't feel the need to address certain individuals. Science doesn't answer metaphysical questions. Yeah, absolutely. Science is a beautiful method. I'm not sure if that was a question or a statement, but it's a true statement, that science has a scope, it has a limitation, right? And hence, sometimes some atheists, unfortunately, are confused regarding this because they are led to believe that science is the only way to truth. Even if they don't articulate it in this way and they don't have that statement as, if you like, a commandment in their head, like the 10 commandments, they still are led to follow this outlook without even labeling, without even thinking of it that way. They just naturally fall into this. That's just the world we live in. Generally speaking, even through schooling and education, we are instilled with this underlying philosophy, if you like, that seeing is believing. Science proves things. If you can empirically validate it, then it's true. If you can't, then it's not true, or it's not as true as it would be if it was to be empirically validated. But these are huge issues, because we know science isn't the only way to truth. It's one potential way that can lead us to the truth, or close to understanding the reality of the physical material world, but it's limited to that. It's amoral. It can't give you moral truths. It can't speak about other metaphysical realities. When it comes to God's existence, it doesn't have a foot in the door, because God is beyond the material physical realm that He created. So yeah, I think the statement is very true. So let's see, okay, someone's saying he's full of contradictions. Brilliant. Qazi, may God bless you, may God guide you. Atheists would respond to that by saying that the purpose is subjective. Okay, so when it comes to the purpose of life, now some atheists may turn around and say, well, look, there is no ultimate purpose. Purpose is subjective. If they want to say that, they can say that. But I would question, what do you mean when you say that purpose is subjective. And in most cases, what I would assume they mean is that I give myself purpose. My purpose, for example, is to be a doctor. My purpose is to be an engineer. A third person will say my purpose is to do charity work. Purpose is subjective, right? Fine, you can see it that way, but you have to realize that this is purpose you're giving yourself. You're ascribing purpose to yourself. This is not your ultimate purpose. This is just something that you have consciously sat down, just looked at the world around you and said, you know what? I'm going to give myself a purpose, and my purpose is X, Y, or Z. This is basically just making stuff up for yourself. That's the problem with that response. If they want to do that, then by all means, they can carry on doing that. So another question by Gokug, I think that's how you say it. I'm really sorry if I'm butchering you guys' names. Some said asking the purpose of life is meaningless, and others asked why is it? When she tried to explain, he said it's the mistake. He is her purpose, who explains that there is no purpose. Goku Barak, please clarify that. I didn't understand the comment, sorry. If you can just clarify, that would be brilliant. Assalamu alaikum, how can I explain Allah's qadr more easily to people? Okay, this is a very, very interesting question. Now, when it comes to qadr, we're talking about predestination and the reality that we have free will, but at the same time, God knows everything and He has determined everything. Now, the easiest, the most simplest answer is the answer of humility, which is to recognize and realize that as human beings, we are limited, we don't understand everything. And this is one of those things that we would never be able to understand, because we're talking about not only the human realm, which follows a certain set of laws and is governed by, it has a certain framework. But we're also talking about the realm of God, which is almost impossible for us limited human beings, because God is beyond the bounds and the framework He's created of this reality. So we're talking about two different realities. Hence, it's beyond us. That's the simplest answer, and that's the normal answer I stick to as well, because I think it's very humbling to acknowledge that we don't know everything, right? This is just beyond us. But from our limited perspective, we have free will. God has told us that, and we have to therefore express it and exercise it, and just to make the most of this opportunity that we have in this life to do the right things and choose to do the right things. Anyone disbelieves in a creator is actually okay. Brothers and sisters, one thing I would really advise, and I've mentioned this in the comments before as well, I know we're passionate, I know we get agitated, even I get agitated. If you realize, and these are mistakes I make all the time, and I made it recently. I put out a video on Ricky Gervais, and to be honest, I've seen some of his stuff, and it really got me angry because of some of the stuff he says he absolutely doesn't know what he's talking about. Yet he comes across as if he knows everything to know in the world regarding religion and God and etc. So what I did was I titled the video in quite an aggressive way. I said something, I titled it "The Pathetic Poster Boy of Atheism." Now, obviously, there was a bit of tongue-in-cheek there as well. However, I realized, and I was advised by another brother, that we shouldn't go to this level, because at the end of the day, our objective is to deliver the message and try to win the hearts and minds of people, not to win the debate or to undermine people or to be aggressive towards people, because we're not going to achieve anything this way. That's not the objective of da'wah. Hence, I changed it. I removed the pathetic and I left it as the poster boy of atheism. Point being that sometimes I've noticed and I've picked up on that we sometimes get very aggressive in the comments. Sometimes we put comments where we're almost abusing the atheists. We don't want to do this, right? We actually want to show them the ideal. We want to actually show them how Islam gives us the moral leverage, and how human beings should be engaging with others, and we should respect them, give them that respect from that perspective, and not be rude or aggressive, because we're not going to achieve anything that way. And it's a reminder to myself first and foremost as well. But that being said, we all make mistakes, so please, brothers and sisters, keep it civil. One thing I love about what you guys do on this channel, and let me commend you guys here for that, is something that's very profound about this channel, and it's not my channel, it's everyone's channel, everyone that engages on this, is that you guys are fully maximizing the use of the comment section, which is brilliant. I've seen people give dawah to atheists there. I've seen people engaging. I've seen many atheists who have approached the Muslims in a very civil way, asked genuine questions, and they're really engaging on the comments. Obviously, there's the crazy atheist that comes in and drops a few lines here and there, but there's also the Muslims that come and put some abusive things. And normally, if I see something like this, I delete it on both ends, whether it's Muslim or atheist, because that's not conducive to the discussions that want to be had on the comment section. But overall, generally, 99%, 98%, 99% of the time, you guys are brilliant. The way you're engaging is phenomenal, right? It's almost become a platform where you guys are just sharing and giving da'wah, and you're engaging, and where atheists are coming and asking questions, and I really appreciate that. So keep that going. It's phenomenal what you guys are doing. May Allah bless you. May God accept that from all of you. So let's quickly move on. I'm going to wrap this up in about, let's say, about another 10 minutes time. So someone's Barak has asked the question again. He says, if purpose of life is subjective, can we accuse someone of being bad or killing innocents in purpose if purpose is subjective? Some people can say my purpose is killing, and she or he is not wrong. Now this is an interesting question. We have to be careful here, because now we're crossing, or this is where the emergence of purpose and ethics comes to play, right? So this is an ethical, moral question as well. Now maybe next week I'll go into the whole moral aspect, the problem with morality on atheism and naturalism, and how you can't account for objective morality, and meaning that literally anything from one perspective, again, if we logically follow through, goes, anything goes, right? But there's a lot more nuances there. So there are other alternative philosophies that some atheists bring into. You may have consequentialism, utilitarianism, a different type of consequential, or they're very similar and they have differences. You may have people that say, well, our morals stem from evolution. You'll have people that ascribe to moral realism, where they say, well, morals are objective, but they just are, right? There's no explanation. We'll go into this discussion in maybe the next live, hopefully. What is your agenda? Okay, I'm going to ignore that question. I'll be very. Let me actually address one point. I don't have an agenda. My agenda is simple. I personally try to be a Muslim, and that is hard in and of itself, as we can appreciate, right? It's very difficult. May God make it easy for us to do what's right and to live in the best way possible as we can, in accordance with Islam. And therefore we worship Allah alone, we ascribe no partners to Him, and we follow the final message of the Prophet, peace be upon him. My agenda here is very simple, is to deliver the basic message of Islam to humanity, to remind people that God created them, and He created them for a purpose, which is to worship Him. Now we have a limited life, we have a short period of time on this earth. It's very important that humanity becomes aware of their Creator, and they try their best to move forward and try to fulfill the purpose of their existence to the best of their ability. That's essentially my objective here on YouTube. That's what I'm trying to do. Yeah, so that's that. Let's see if there's any other question for an atheist. Punishment, okay. I'm going to skip some of them because some of them are very similar to the questions I've already answered. So this is interesting. Rushin says, I personally believe that no one in the world can be an atheist. Human beings have made one thing or another their God. Most Western atheists have made their nafs their God. Very interesting point. Absolutely 100% agreed. And just to elaborate on what you said, very brilliant point, and that is that technically every single human being, by their very nature, falls into the worship of something or the other. We just cannot help this, right? Everyone is a slave. Everyone is submitting to something or the other. Even the most extreme case, if we take person X who says, I follow nothing, I worship nothing, I worship no one, I am a free person, I do what I want to do. When they say I do what I want to do, they are essentially expressing that they submit to themselves and they worship themselves. They are their own deity. because they are the person that they obey the most, they love the most, and they understand the most from that perspective, right? So everyone is submitting to something or the other. And there is no such thing as a true, even I would agree, there is no such thing as a true atheist from the perspective that they don't worship anything or anyone, any being, including themselves. It's just a part of human nature to submit and worship, you know. Why are people still turning towards atheism is another topic in and of itself. What makes atheists atheists? What makes people hold on to the label of atheism, or as opposed to, I'm an agnostic, I don't know, right? And in many cases, when you speak to atheists, what you realize is that they're really agnostic, they're not sure, but they for some reason have adopted the label of atheism. Now this is a very interesting discussion in and of itself as to why that happens. And I believe there's many reasons, but again, we'll probably go into in another discussion. Belief says, not everything, she's responding to Russian, not everything has a logical answer. Destiny and fate is beyond our understanding. The arrogance in these filthy, again, please don't use aggressive language, right? Or patronizing language, or language that undermines the human being. We don't need to go to this level. Please guys, just keep it as civil as we can, inshallah, and as ethical, at least from the perspective of good moral conduct and character is concerned. Let's keep that up there to highlight that, you know, we are people who follow the messenger of Allah, who was the most ethical human being, the most the human being on the highest moral standard, inshallah. That's what we should aspire to do the best we can. Let's see, only theists worldview can have wrong or right. Yeah, that's something we'll talk about. Brilliant point, Barak. Another good point, that wrong or right, right or wrong, the true understanding of right and wrong, it can only be made sense of on theism, in particular Islam. Okay, I'm going to flick down. Atheism is in position. Very good point. Russian has made a good point that atheism is in a position that Allah recognized in the Quran. Now, there is the understanding of ilhad or mulhadeen, the people of that. But this refers to, you can say it refers to atheists. But if you look at the Quran, generally speaking, Allah does not address the atheist. Allah is addressing people who recognize there is a creator from a fitri perspective, and Allah is addressing the fitrah of the human being. Now, these people may have taken other deities as worship, they may have associated partners with God, but God is specifically speaking to them, and speaking to obviously the people of the book, therefore the Christians and the Jews and people from other traditions. There are some places in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly presents or gets the people to think about his existence. As far as arguments are concerned, you can derive certain arguments, such as chapter 52 verse 35 and 36. You know what, next week I'll do that. In next week's live, what I'll do is I will share the profound argument that's found in chapter 52 verse 35 and 36 of the Quran. It's a phenomenal argument, which I believe is one of the strongest arguments for God's existence, which is derived from these two verses of the Quran, and we'll go into that next week, inshallah. So what do you think is the best argument for God? Lord Yamcha, hopefully I'm saying it right. I will share that with you next week. I believe it's what we call the Quranic argument for God's existence. If you want to do some homework before that, I would say just go and read up chapter 52 of the Quran, verses 35 and 36. There's a very beautiful argument that's there. Now, the debate's not on YouTube. It will be up. So this is Senorita Abril. The debate will be out in about a month's time. It's not on YouTube at the moment. What's the worst argument you've heard against theism? Maybe not the worst, but the funniest thing I've heard, which is quite common, is, well, I just don't believe. And when you ask why, it's just, I don't know. I just don't. And you get that a lot as well. And again, there are loads of people out there, especially in the real world. Obviously on YouTube, you have a different demographic. You have certain atheists who, have apparently thought things through and they've come to the positions that they've come to. But generally out there's loads of people that associate themselves with atheism but don't really know why they're atheists. They just are atheists maybe for social reasons. And it's quite funny because they would claim their atheism in a very strong way, yet when asked as to why they're atheists, they just don't know, right? So that's, but the interesting argument that they always make is the problem of evil. Now I have a video on the channel with Hamza, which is addressing the problem of evil. So definitely check that out, guys, if you haven't already. And that should address that. And I will do a live on that as well, just so we can go into a lot more detail and share some more thoughts on that. Okay, let's see. Infinite regress. I will, Iman Sirjani, I think that's how you say your name. I'm really sorry. By the way, guys, I am slightly dyslexic, so I find it very difficult, especially to read and remember names. So if I'm butchering your names, please forgive me. But I will definitely do more live streams. I'll try to do one a week, one every Friday, hopefully, going forward. So what I'm doing at the moment, what I'm trying to do is be consistent, which is I'm putting out a video on Monday, a video on Wednesday, and I'm going to try to put out a live on every Friday. So if it's not a live, it will be a recorded video, but I'm going to try to do a live instead. Okay, let's go on. Why do atheists try to explain God by science? I'll take this as the last question for today. The reason, one of the main reasons is, again, Barak, one of the main reasons why God, atheists try to either, I think the way you said it, you said, explain. So one of the main reasons atheists try to explain God scientifically, or another way of looking at it is they will say, or they will ask for scientific proofs for God, or require or ask for a scientific explanation for God, is because they have this paradigm in their mind, which is that science is the only way to truth. Or some, being a bit more nuanced, some would say science is the predominant way to truth about everything. This is obviously not true. And what they would do is, because they have this paradigm in their mind, then when it comes to the question of God as well, they will say, okay, what scientific evidence do you have for God? And what's interesting is that the guy I debated in Manchester, John Richards, he was also someone, he admitted in the debate himself that I believe science is the only way to truth. So when he was asking for proof for God, he was asking for scientific proof for God, right? Which is very interesting, because it just makes no logical sense that God is not a part of his material physical creation. Hence, you can't empirically, at least directly, you can't prove or disprove God's existence scientifically, because God is beyond what science can deal with, which is the material physical world, right? But people forget, people think science can answer everything, which it can't. Science deals with a very specific realm. It deals with the material, the physical, the material physical existence. Therefore, anything, if you see the box, this is the box of material physical existence that we live in, the material existence that we live in, the physical existence. Anything outside of this box is beyond the scope of science, right? It's beyond the scope of science. Therefore, science cannot at least directly prove or disprove that thing. Now, just because science can't prove or disprove a thing, it doesn't mean that thing doesn't exist. It doesn't logically follow, right? Although so take morals, for example. Science is amoral. Although some atheists are really trying hard to give a scientific foundation for morality, such as Sam Harris in The Moral Landscape, but they fail to do this. They can't do this, right? Hence, they don't want to be in the position where they accept something which is beyond science, which they can't help but accept because we live ethical, moral lives. But these are examples, that there are things beyond the scope of science. And when the question of God is a question that's beyond the scope of science. The reason atheists insist on empirical data for God, or empirical or scientific and empirical proofs for God, is because of the misunderstanding. They misunderstand what the scientific method is, the philosophy of science, and they misunderstand the nature of God. That Allah, God, is beyond the physical material universe. He's not inside his material physical universe. It just doesn't make any sense. God is not a material physical God. And it's these misunderstandings which lead to certain further assertions by individuals like Richard Dawkins, when he says, if God created the universe, then who created God? Because the universe is so complex, therefore God must be even more complex. As he has, again, the idea that God must be made up of parts, material parts, physical parts. It just, again, it's because of the underlying paradigm which leads to all of these contradictory and incorrect questions and outlooks. Hopefully that addresses that point, brother. So I guess I'm going to conclude here. I thank you guys for coming on. May Allah, to the Muslims, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and increase you. Brothers and sisters, just want to give you one short last reminder before I wrap up today. This work of da'wah, or to call people to Allah, this work that the Prophets did, when we're engaging in this work, we have to be very, very careful. And it's a reminder for myself first and foremost. And one of the things that we have to be very careful about is our mannerisms and etiquettes and characteristics in the dawah. We don't want to come across in a way which is patronizing, which is aggressive, which is, in a way we're speaking down to people as if we're on some high pedestal. Because at the end of the day, the way we should think about it and see it, and which is a reality, the people we're engaging with, whether it be on YouTube or whether it be in real life, it's very possible that these people are going to enter Jannah, paradise, before us, right? It's very possible. Allah can guide anyone at any time. So we should have that mindset and hence treat every single person we engage with respect. And we shouldn't assume the worst. We shouldn't assume that they are arrogant and deliberately not believing, right? But we should assume they're ignorant, they don't know, they haven't heard the message clearly, and we should try, whenever we give da'wah, to give people the message of Islam with the utmost clarity and with the best of manners. And the best evidence I can give you for this and this approach, generally speaking. Now obviously there are times and occurrences or situations where you may have to come across a bit more authoritative, a bit more firm, but that doesn't mean you lose your manners. However, generally speaking, we should always adopt beautiful, good characteristics and conduct. And the best evidence I could give you for this is in the story of Musa and Pharaoh, Moses and Pharaoh. It's a phenomenal. Remember, stories, brothers and sisters, stories in the Quran are there for a very specific reason. Stories have lessons, right? Stories generally, the storytelling has been there since man first walked the face of this earth. And stories are very profound things because stories, whether they're fiction or non-fiction, stories have a very profound reality, which is that even if they are not, if they are fiction, they may not be true, but what they contain is true. The lessons they contain, the universal human lessons that they contain are true. But the stories in the Quran are not only true, but the lessons they contain are beyond value. We can't put a value on them. There are some profound lessons. Now, the specific story or aspect of the story I want to quickly share to give my evidence as to why we should adopt the best characteristics in the dawah is, and when I say dawah, anyone that doesn't know any Muslims, that is to convey the message of Islam to humanity, to share the message of Islam in a nutshell. The best evidence I could give in the story of Moses, when Moses is sent to Pharaoh. Now, one of the things God tells Moses in the Quran before he goes to Pharaoh is he says to him, speak to him softly, gently, right? Now, this is profound advice, and there is a profound lesson in this for us to understand, which is that Moses is one of the best of human beings. He's the prophet of God, right? He is an exemplary human being, one of the best human beings ever to have lived. Pharaoh, on the other hand, is right at the other end of the scale. He's one of the worst of human beings. The atrocities he committed, the evil he committed on the face of this earth, he is literally one of the worst human beings. Now, there's a very interesting dynamic at play here. One of the best of human beings is being sent to one of the worst of human beings. And the advice God is giving Moses when he's being sent to Pharaoh is to speak to him softly. And why? So that he may wake up, essentially. He may understand. Now, there's a profound lesson in this for us. None of us Muslims are the equivalent of Moses. We're nowhere near that level. And most people, I would say, the people we engage with on YouTube, the people we engage with in real life, none of them are as bad as Pharaoh, right? And if that's the case, then if Moses is being told to be soft and gentle in his approach to Pharaoh, how should our approach be to the people we engage with when we're sharing the message of Islam? That's something for us to really think about, and take a lesson from. So I leave you guys with that. I thank you guys for coming online. May God bless you all. If there's any atheists that have watched this and watched this all the way through, I thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully, you found something beneficial in this. If you have any questions, please do leave them in the comment section. I am going to go through the comment section after as well. Muslims, if there's any atheists there, please engage with them as you normally do. May God bless you. And let's keep this discussion going and this effort going that you guys are putting in. And until next time, take care.